Have you ever wondered why, no matter how much effort you put into pleasing a woman, it never seems to be enough? You buy her gifts, you respond to every text instantly, you cancel your plans just to be available when she calls, and at first, maybe she smiles, maybe she says thank you. But over time, you notice the spark in her eyes fading. The appreciation turns into expectation. The warmth turns into coolness. And the harder you try, the colder she becomes. You sit there wondering, what am I doing wrong? I'm giving her everything. But that's exactly the problem. You're giving her everything and leaving nothing for yourself. When you chase female approval, you give away your power. You think you're building love, but you're actually building dependence. Dependence on her reaction, her attention, her validation. Every compliment feels like oxygen. Every silence feels like suffocation. And when you hand over the keys to your self-worth like that, she doesn't see a strong man anymore. She sees someone she can mold, someone she can test, someone she can push just to see how far he'll bend before he breaks. Imagine this. A man takes a woman out to dinner. She mentions she loves Italian food, so he immediately insists, "We'll always go wherever you want." The next week she mentions she hates horror movies, so he swears, "We'll never watch them again." At first, she feels flattered by his willingness to adjust, but soon she notices something missing. Where is his opinion? Where is his backbone? Where is the man who leads instead of follows? Without realizing it, his constant agreement begins to drain the attraction out of her. She doesn't feel chosen by a man. She feels obeyed by a servant. The brutal truth is this. Women don't fall in love with men who worship them. They fall in love with men who respect themselves first. If every move you make is designed to win her approval, she feels the weight of responsibility for your happiness. And nothing kills desire faster than realizing she controls your emotions like a light switch. She wants to admire your strength, not babysit your self-esteem. Now, here's where it gets dangerous. Women will test you, not because they're evil, but because psychology is instinctual. If she pulls away slightly, if she delays a reply, if she makes a sarcastic comment about your clothes, she's not just talking, she's watching. She's measuring how you respond. Do you panic? Do you instantly adjust to please her? Or do you stand calm, unmoved, solid in your own frame? Your reaction tells her everything she needs to know about whether she can trust your masculinity or not. Picture this scenario. She suddenly withdraws attention. Yesterday, she was texting non-stop. Today, she's cold and distant. The people pleaser inside you starts typing out long paragraphs asking if she's upset, apologizing for things you don't even know you did wrong, offering to make it up to her. Do you know what that communicates? It tells her she can control your state of mind by pressing the mute button. And once she knows that works, she'll keep pressing it, sometimes consciously, often unconsciously. Either way, you're trapped in a cycle of chasing the warmth she's withholding. The strategy is simple but not easy. Stop rewarding withdrawal with pursuit. If she pulls away, you pull back too. If she goes silent, you let the silence breathe. If she criticizes without respect, you don't grovel, you calmly disengage, not to punish her, but to protect yourself. Because the moment you prove you don't need her constant approval to feel whole, something shifts. She begins to respect you again. She begins to lean in, instead of leaning away. And most importantly, you start to regain the dignity you've been trading for scraps of validation. Think back on your own life. How many times have you felt that sinking sensation of over-investing? Maybe you bought her a surprise gift only for her to shrug. Maybe you bent over backwards to fix a problem she barely noticed. Maybe you kept texting after she stopped responding, each message chipping away at your pride. You thought you were showing care, but you were really showing desperation. And desperation never attracts, it only repels. The key isn't to stop caring. The key is to stop proving. A man who knows his value doesn't perform for approval. He offers presence, strength, and direction, and lets her decide if she's worthy of joining his world. That doesn't mean arrogance. It means self-respect. It means you no longer wake up wondering how to please her, but instead ask yourself whether this relationship pleases you. That shift is where attraction lives. Because a man who doesn't need validation is the man every woman subconsciously respects. So let me ask you, have you ever caught yourself apologizing just to keep her from being upset? Have you ever bent so far to avoid conflict that you lost your own voice? Have you ever mistaken her fading attraction as a sign you need to try harder, instead of a sign you need to stop chasing? You've probably heard this phrase before. Happy wife, happy life. It sounds harmless, even wise, but hidden inside is the poison that's been draining men of their power for generations. What it really means is, abandon your own needs, abandon your own voice, and sacrifice yourself on the altar of her comfort. And when you do that, you think you're buying peace. In reality, you're selling respect, because every time you silence yourself just to keep her smiling, you train her to see you as less of a man and more of a tool. Think about the last time you ignored your own desires. Maybe you wanted a quiet night at home, but she demanded to go out. Instead of calmly saying no, you sighed, put on your shoes and went anyway. On the surface, it seemed like a small compromise, but deep down, she noticed. She saw that your word meant nothing when it clashed with her wants. She felt the shift of power, and in that moment, a subtle form of contempt began to take root. Attraction dies not in explosions, but in small concessions that accumulate until she realizes she can bend you at will. Let me make this crystal clear. Women do not test you because they consciously want to ruin you. They test because they want to feel the weight of your boundaries. A man without boundaries is like a house without walls. At first it looks open and inviting, but soon it feels unsafe, untrustworthy, unlivable. When you let her push past your limits again and again, you're not proving love, you're proving weakness. And weakness breeds resentment, not desire. Here's a story I've seen play out countless times. A guy starts dating a woman he really likes. At first he's confident, funny, relaxed. She's drawn to his energy. But slowly, she starts throwing little challenges his way. Maybe she criticizes his friends. Maybe she makes fun of his hobbies. Maybe she tells him, "Why do you always wear those shirts? They don't look good." If he laughs it off and keeps his ground, the game ends there. But most men crumble. He ditches his friends. He quits the hobbies. He changes his style to please her. He thinks he's building the relationship stronger. Instead, he's stripping away the very parts of himself that attracted her in the first place. Soon, she's bored. She looks at him and wonders, where did the man I fell for go? What she doesn't realize is that she destroyed him and he let her. The antidote is boundaries. Real boundaries. Boundaries aren't rules you bark at her. They're lines you hold for yourself, regardless of her reaction. If she mocks your passion, you don't abandon it, you double down. If she tries to isolate you from people you value, you don't argue endlessly, you simply keep those people in your life. If she throws a tantrum because you said no, you don't grovel. You stand calm until the storm passes. A woman may not always like a man's boundaries in the moment, but she will always respect them in the long run. Now let's talk about overinvestment. This is one of the most silent killers of attraction. Men think that the more effort they put in, the more love they'll receive back. But relationships don't work like vending machines. If she hasn't shown you earned interest, your endless giving doesn't inspire gratitude. It inspires entitlement. She doesn't think, wow, he loves me so much. She thinks, this is just what he does. This is what I deserve. And once that entitlement sets in, you've lost leverage forever. Here's a practical rule. Never give more than she's invested. If she texts once, you don't send 5 messages back. If she shares a little about her day, you don't unload your whole soul trying to impress her with vulnerability. Matching energy doesn't make you cold, it makes you balanced. It shows that your love isn't cheap, that it can't be bought with crumbs of attention. It teaches her that your approval is valuable, and valuable things are never free. This is where quiet strength becomes your greatest weapon. You don't need to argue, you don't need to explain, you don't need to prove your worth through desperate action. You simply stop giving what hasn't been earned. You stop running after someone who walks away. You stop pouring energy into someone who gives you half of what you deserve. And when you do that, you create space. Space for her to step up. Space for her to invest. Space for her to show whether she actually values you or whether she was just feeding off your approval all along. The shift happens when you realize that your time, your attention, your approval is the prize. She isn't the prize. You are. Without your spine, your direction, your standards, the relationship collapses into chaos. She may not say it out loud, but every woman feels it when she's with a man who doesn't need her validation to stand tall. That's the man she follows. That's the man she respects. That's the man she doesn't dare take for granted. So I'll ask you this. When was the last time you gave more than she did and felt that sting of being unappreciated? Have you ever noticed yourself shrinking your opinions, your passions, your social circle just to keep her happy? And if so, what did it cost you? Every man knows the quiet dread of waiting. Waiting for her reply. Waiting for her mood to shift. Waiting for her to decide whether you're worthy today. You stare at the phone, refreshing the screen, replaying your last message in your head like a prisoner replaying his trial. Did I say too much? Was I too cold? Should I send another text to fix it? That waiting is not love. That waiting is addiction. And addiction to female approval is the fastest way to kill your masculinity. What you don't realize in those moments is that she feels it too. Women can sense when a man is orbiting them, waiting on their validation. They may never say it, but they know. It leaks through your tone, your timing, your energy. And once she senses that her attention controls you, she loses respect. Because deep down, attraction isn't built on a man's eagerness. It's built on his independence. A man who doesn't need her reply right away is a man she can't control, and paradoxically, that's the man she wants most. Let me show you how the game plays out. A woman pulls back. Maybe she delays her reply for hours. She's not even doing it maliciously sometimes. It's unconscious. She just wants to see if you'll chase harder. And most men do. They double text. They over-explain. They fill the silence with desperate energy. That's the trap. Every extra message tells her, my time is worthless. My attention is cheap. You are above me. And once you teach her that, good luck ever reversing it. Here's the tactical correction. Silence must be met with silence. If she withdraws, you don't panic. You don't rush in to fill the void. You stay still. You keep moving in your life as if nothing changed. Not to play a childish game, but to communicate subconsciously. My world doesn't stop when you disappear. That posture, that calm indifference, forces her to evaluate her own interest. If she values you, she will return. If she doesn't, she'll drift away. And that's your blessing, not your loss. Because a woman who only engages when you beg isn't a partner. She's a parasite feeding on your insecurity. Think of it like this. A man chasing approval is like a dog begging for scraps at the dinner table. At first, she might find it cute, but eventually, she resents it. No one respects the dog that won't stop whining for attention. But the man who sits back, who knows his worth, who lets her come to him, that man is like fire. She can't help but be drawn closer. Now let's talk about another hidden trap. Over-explaining. Men who crave female approval explain everything. If she looks upset, they write long essays defending their actions. If she questions their choices, they list 100 reasons why. They think they're solving problems, but in reality they're bleeding authority. Because every unnecessary explanation tells her you're afraid of her disapproval. Here's a simple rule. State your truth once. That's it. If you decide to spend time with your friends, you say, I've got plans tonight. You don't add, but I'll make it up to you, I promise. Please don't be mad. That extra line isn't love, it's weakness. If she respects you, she doesn't need paragraphs. If she doesn't respect you, no amount of explaining will change her mind. Your calm certainty is enough. Let me give you a story that drives this home. A man I once knew was dating a woman who constantly tested him. One night, she accused him of not caring because he wanted to work late instead of going out. The old version of him would have begged, apologized, rearranged his life. But this time, he simply said, I hear you, but my work matters tonight. Then he went silent. She raged, she pouted, but eventually, she showed up the next day, calmer, more respectful. Why? Because he didn't bend. He didn't explain. He didn't crumble under the weight of her disapproval. And in that resistance, she felt his strength again. This is the paradox men must understand. Women test you not to find weakness, but to feel the presence of your strength. Every moment you seek their approval, you fail that test. Every moment you stand calm in your truth, you pass. And the difference between the two is the difference between being her obsession or being her afterthought. So ask yourself this. How many times have you begged for attention instead of holding your ground? How often have you explained yourself into exhaustion just to win back her smile? And what would it feel like, honestly feel like, to stop chasing her approval and let her chase yours for once? There's a moment in almost every man's life when he realizes he's become invisible in his own relationship. He's sitting across the table, nodding along, laughing at jokes that don't land, pretending to be interested in stories he's heard a dozen times. He's not really there, he's performing. Performing for approval, performing for peace, performing for a woman who once admired his strength but now barely notices he exists. That's the cost of chasing validation. You trade your presence for performance, and over time, that performance kills not only her attraction, but your soul. Why does this happen? Because when a man lives for her approval, he slowly erases himself. He stops disagreeing. He stops leading. He stops standing for anything that might risk her disapproval. And what remains is a hollow shell, a man-shaped echo whose only purpose is to keep her comfortable. But here's the harsh truth. Women don't want comfort from men. They want tension. They want polarity. They want the friction that comes from a man who knows himself so fully that he can push back against her storms without flinching. Think about it. The men women obsess over aren't the ones who bend at every request. They're the ones who stand rooted like a tree in the wind. The ones who make decisions without hesitation. the ones who can walk away without looking back. That's not cruelty, it's certainty. And certainty is the rarest commodity in modern men, because so many have been conditioned to believe their worth depends on how much they can please. Let me show you how this looks in the real world. A woman says, "You never spend enough time with me." The approval-seeking man cancels his plans, rushes over, and spends the night smothering her with attention. For a moment, she smiles, but deep down she feels nothing but pity, because she knows she can control him with a single sentence. Now, take the man who responds differently. He looks at her calmly and says, "I value our time, but I also value my priorities. Let's plan something tomorrow." She might sulk, she might pout, but inside, she feels a spark. Why? Because he didn't fold. He held his line, and whether she admits it or not, her respect for him just grew. This is where discipline enters the game. Discipline isn't about being cold or distant. It's about never betraying yourself for scraps of attention. It's about teaching her, through action, that your love is real but your approval is not for sale. You can give affection, but you don't give your spine. You can give care, but you don't give away your core. And when you live this way, something changes. She stops taking you for granted. She starts leaning in. She starts wondering what she has to do to keep your attention. The polarity flips, the chase reverses, and suddenly, you're no longer the one waiting for her approval. She's working to earn yours. Here's another trap you must see clearly: the drama loop. Women will sometimes create storms just to test if you'll drown in them. Maybe she starts an argument over nothing. Maybe she accuses you of being distant when you've done nothing wrong. The weak man jumps into the chaos, defending himself, apologizing, trying to calm her. He thinks he's solving the problem, but he's just feeding the fire. The strong man, he doesn't argue with chaos. He doesn't wrestle with smoke. He stays calm, detached, unmoved. He doesn't abandon her, but he refuses to lose himself in her storm. And do you know what happens? The storm passes faster, because a fire without fuel burns out, and she realizes that no tantrum, no silence, no manipulation can shake his frame. That's when she feels safe. That's when she feels desire. Every woman is subconsciously searching for a man who won't collapse under pressure, not because she wants to dominate him, but because she wants to feel anchored. And if you're chasing her approval, you can never be that anchor. You'll always be the leaf blowing in her wind, not the tree she can lean on. That's why so many men end up heartbroken and confused, wondering why giving more never worked. It never worked because she wasn't looking for a servant. She was looking for a man. So I'll leave you with this tonight. When was the last time you said no and actually meant it? When was the last time you let her storm pass without trying to fix it? And when was the last time you felt her respect grow because you refused to betray yourself for her approval? One of the most brutal lessons you'll ever learn is that approval seeking doesn't just kill attraction, it breeds contempt. The more you bend, the more she breaks you. The more you give without her earning it, the less she values what you give. And the most painful part? She will never tell you this directly. She won't sit you down and say, "I don't respect you because you're too available." Instead, she'll just drift away. She'll get colder, sharper, more distant. She'll look at you not with admiration but with irritation, and you'll be sitting there, wondering why your endless effort isn't enough, when in reality, it was your effort itself that destroyed you. The psychology behind this is simple but devastating. Respect comes before love. Without respect, love cannot survive. And when you live for female approval, you silently communicate that you don't respect yourself. You become her project, her puppet, her accessory. She doesn't admire you, she manages you. And deep down, every woman despises the man she has to manage. But here's the turning point. You can stop. You can cut the strings. You can reclaim what you've been giving away piece by piece. It starts by noticing the patterns. When she pulls away, stop chasing. When she criticizes unfairly, stop explaining. When she tests you with drama, stop reacting. Your silence, your calm, your refusal to be moved, those are not weaknesses. They're weapons. Weapons that remind her, and yourself, that your masculinity is not up for negotiation. Imagine a man who flips the script. He no longer texts paragraphs when she goes cold. He no longer cancels his plans just because she snaps her fingers. He no longer bends his opinions to fit her moods. Instead, he lives his life fully. He pursues his goals relentlessly. He surrounds himself with friends, purpose, and passion. And when she comes to him, he listens, but he doesn't collapse. He can love her, yes, but he doesn't need her to breathe. That man is dangerous. That man is magnetic. That man is rare. And that man is you if you're willing to let go of the addiction to approval. Let me give you a concrete strategy you can use right now. The next time she throws a test your way, maybe she says, "Why didn't you answer sooner?" Don't defend. Don't explain. Just smile and say, "Because I was busy with something important." Then stop talking. Let the silence do the work. If she values you, she'll respect that. If she doesn't, she'll push harder, and that's when you stand even firmer. Do this enough times and you'll see the dynamic shift. She'll realize she can't move you with disapproval. She has to earn your approval instead. That's when the game flips. That's when you stop being her puppet and become the man she actually desires. And here's the deeper truth. Approval, seeking isn't just about women. It bleeds into every area of your life. The man who can't say no to his girlfriend is the same man who can't say no to his boss, his friends, his family. He's the man who works late for no credit, who lends money he never sees again, who sacrifices everything just to avoid disappointing others. And by the time he wakes up, he's bitter, resentful, hollow. But when you kill that addiction at the root, when you stop chasing validation, you don't just save your relationships, you save your life. You reclaim your time, your energy, your presence, and suddenly the world sees you differently, not as a boy begging for scraps, but as a man who cannot be moved. This is the essence of masculinity: to stand, to hold your frame, to be the anchor in a world that constantly pulls. Women may not always say it, but they crave it. They crave the man who doesn't need them because that's the man they can trust. That's the man they can follow. That's the man they can respect. And without respect, nothing else matters. So let me leave you with this. She didn't break you. She revealed what you were too afraid to protect. And now you know. Now you see the trap. Now you hold the choice. Will you keep chasing her approval until there's nothing left of you? Or will you reclaim yourself, stand tall, and make her earn the privilege of standing beside you? The decision is yours.